So I'd like to give a longer version of that 2-minute self-introduction slide about rowing and myself. Um, and Here it is. So these guys won the two-person rowing gold medal at the 1964 Olympics in Tokyo. And that was Japan's coming out party, where the Asian century, which we call the 21st century, may have begun around then, with Japan really showing that it had recovered from World War II. It turned the corner and was now had become the lead goose, leading development throughout Asia, and other geese following behind. And now we see China really as the dominant player in Asia, and in many ways the world. And some of that I think we can trace to Japan's success. But here we see these guys with their muscles that are very useful. Not so big, it seems, but they were good enough to win the gold medal. And how do you get that? How do you get to be good individually, but also good as a team? Well, in rowing, it's about individual training to begin with. You got to get your endurance up. You got to get your skills as best you can be. But the key point is, how can you perform in the boat together with your teammates? Because it's all about balance. And you work on that in training, but then there's competition where people get pulled out of one boat and put in another boat to try and make the perfect boat. So you want to make your A team your top boat, and your second best boat the B team. And it may not be the B team, with the inferior athletes, but they're just not able to put together the right team to make the best boat. But here, the goal is, when you compete against other clubs, to have such good A teams and such a good A team and such a good B team that you get the gold and the silver. And in the story that is in The Boys in the Boat, the 1936 Olympics, where the US team won, that wasn't even the A team. But the key in a team is to have trust, that you trust each other. And it's really tricky in rowing, because the only person who can see where you're going is the coxswain, and he's not even rowing. But he's not the leader. The leader is the stroke, who sets the pace, and people follow that stroke, but he can't see where he's going, or she, if it's women's crew. But here we see these guys, they have to trust each other and hope that the coxswain knows what he's doing. But they learn how to trust by doing this. And without trust, I mean, can you even have a team? So in rowing at the university, I learned teamwork and trust. But I also learned about life. And, rowing and having my body and my mind pushed to the limit was part of the process during that year, when I made decisions about how I wanted to live my life. It wasn't really me making decisions per se, as circumstances coming together to lead me to make decisions. And I really think, it allowed me to discover the life in me that then is able to trust other people, and also to be part of a team. It was a growing experience for me that was triggered by rowing. And because of rowing, I'm so delighted that rowing was a big part of that. And because of that experience rowing at the university, I believe, it's led me to be who I am and where I am now. And I'm really thankful to have had that experience rowing. And this is the boat that I introduced briefly in that short version. So the Boys in the Boat here is a really great read. This is such a fun book. These guys were the B team. They were not the A team of the Washington University team that went and won the Olympics. They were not supposed to be there, but they got there because they showed that they could do it. They were just regular people, not elites, but they They figured out how to get in the zone together, and they did it. They really did it. And you can watch a YouTube about um, the, the race, and it's just so much fun. Quick synopsis of what happened. Um, after there was nearly a boycott of the 36 Olympics because people already knew that Hitler and his leading of Germany was not going in a good direction, was not going to a good place. And so there was a lot of people who said, don't go to the Olympics because it's not gonna end well. But they went, and the U.S. Rowing team, the eights, they won the gold medal here. You can see them up at the front, at the edge of the right next to the stands. That's their boat, and it's just in front of the Italian and German boat, won by less than 1 second in a nearly 7-minute race, or a 6-minute and something race. And so this Olympics is maybe best known on the positive side for a guy named Jesse Owens, who was one of 18 black athletes on the team, and he won 4 gold medals, which was a resounding no to Hitler's lies about racial superiority of the so-called Aryan race. He said, come on, that's just old, stupid, well, it's not the best word to use, but it is stupid. It really is wrong. There's so much diversity within one race. To claim racial superiority, I think, is just silly. It's just a way that people try and get other people to follow them, and I think it's just not sound thinking. But it's unfortunately a powerful tool to get people to turn against each other. I think Jesse Owens and other athletes, interesting here how many of those athletes were not treated, the black athletes were not treated right when they got back to the US. But people do remember Jesse Owens. Yeah, I'd love for you to hear some more of these. These are audio programs from NPR about the 36 Olympics. And today, as a closing note, we are laying the foundations for our post-COVID-19 world. Will it be an old normal 2.0? Are we just going to go back to what we used to do, maybe do it a little different, but fundamentally the same? That's been the history of, from the South American perspective, the history since 1492, of just repeating the pattern that was set with that event when Christopher Columbus arrived in the so-called New World. But I think we have an opportunity to create a truly new normal where the individual and the team are both valued. I say let's aim high, let's aim far, and I think we can get there. And I hope we can learn some lessons from rowing, which you really have to have a balance between the individual and the team. And I think that's what we need in the world going forward. Thank you for listening.